In this video, I'll show you how to add tolerances to your drawing. So as I've already dimensioned it, I just noticed I'm missing a dimension. So I've already dimensioned it. Now I'm going to add the tolerances to it. Now one thing to look at is number of decimal places. So the default here is 2 decimals. So all my dimensions are 2 decimals, which doesn't leave me a lot of room for tolerances. Let's say, for example, here on this location of this hole, first I have to, so when you double click, you're going to see this screen. Just click on the tab, it says precision and tolerance, and decide what kind of dimension you want. You'll notice it'll show you what it's going to look like. This is going to be a plus or minus something. So, but I only have 2 decimals. So let's say I did plus or minus 0.01, which is plus or minus 10,000. That's kind of a large tolerance on something, and maybe that's okay. It's not a very precise tolerance. So the problem is I'm limited on my number of decimals. The tolerance should never be more decimals than your dimension. Like, let me give you an example. Like, that's the most ridiculous dimension. You're going to say 1 plus a bunch of 0, 0, 0. So you don't want stupid things like that, right? So you can see here's how you set the number of decimals for that given dimension. So let's say I want to make that one 3 decimals, and I would want my tolerance to be the same number of decimals. And now I could put something that's a little more realistic maybe. So that'd be plus or minus 5 thousandths. If you don't, like, let's turn that one down to 2,000. See what happens is it ends up rounding the number off. Could be a real problem, so make sure you set those 3 decimals, 3 decimals. So that's great for individual dimensions, but if you want all of your dimensions to be more decimals, or if you have a lot of tolerances to apply, then let's see, so go up to annotate, go to manage, click on style editor, and it'll take a second to load, and this will show you everything about your dimensions. And you want to come down here to this dimension area and hit the plus. And the type of dimensioning style we use is ANSI. Now there is architectural ANSI and there's fractional ANSI. We want this one here. It's going to be in decimal places, and this will show you everything about that. It's in inches. It's a period for a decimal point instead of a comma. And this is our precision on the dimension itself. So if I wanted to make them all 3 decimals, just do that. If I'm going to do the same thing for my tolerances, click on that and you can set the number of decimals for your tolerance. Remember, those should be equal number of decimals, and you'll see it'll update everything. When you do that, make sure you didn't jumble up your dimensions. You have enough room between your dimensions and so forth. So let's add some tolerance. So for example, on this hole, now typically on a hole, what you would do, assuming something has to fit in there, I would make sure that the hole never gets too small so the part wouldn't fit. So typically what I would do is, again, I'm going to choose precision and tolerance, is I would probably use something like this, use the deviation where I could call out the number on top, and I would leave the bottom at 0. So what that would mean is the hole can get bigger, but it can't get any smaller. Just double click each dimension, and there's lots of different formats for dimension. And this one you're going to put the exact value. This one was going to measure that. That would be as high as it could go, and that's as low as it could go. No, obviously the easiest one to do is a symmetrical. It doesn't mean it's necessarily right, but it's easy to do. You just put in one number and it'll put a plus minus in there. Again, check how your dimensions look once you've got the tolerance, because they do take up more room. If you have an angle, it works the same way. Double click it and you could set, let's say plus or minus 1. So I get that's 120 degrees is perfect, but you're allowed to go up to 121 or down to 119. And that's the way you place tolerances on your dimensions.